So in this new project, instead of a single value per line, we want multiple values on each line. And we want to read the data in a multi-dimensional array and then process it. So we will going to create a text file by right-clicking on the project, add new item, and this will be a text file. The name of the text file will going to be scores. Scores. We're going to put some data in scores. On every line, we're going to put 4 scores. Let me get rid of this additional spacing. So once you put the data in the text file, you can then close the text file. Okay guys, so we're back in the module, and this is where we're going to start reading the data. So what's the size of my array? This, is it 4 by 4? No. What is the highest upper bound for the number of rows? 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And what is the highest upper bound of the number of values in each row? 3. Okay. So we will going to create a two-dimensional array called scores array, which will going to be based on the upper bound of rows and the upper bound of the number of items in each row. So the purpose of this would be to read the file, read one entire line from the file in a line string, then take that line and split it up wherever the comma occurs in an array called data. That's why it's a single dimensional array. So data will actually hold every line. Split up means since every line has 4 scores, so data will have 4 elements. We will take those elements, we will process it, and then on the next cycle, we will going to refresh the line and refresh the data array. So every time the loop runs, line fetches one line from the file, it splits it up into data, and then we read from the data onwards. And in order for us to hold the file reference, we have a file name string, which we're going to populate the exact same way as we did in our last examples. You click on scores, you grab its path, and you paste it in the double quotes. So that will still going to be the same. I may have to import the package again. Bless you. I'm going to read all lines from, oh, the file name. So I'm reading all lines from the file name into row of nums. Now I'm running a loop that's going to take me through the array scores array. Since all rows are of same size, it doesn't really matter which line I pick because they are all of the same size. So I'm saying that I want to go from 0 to the upper bound of the first row. That'll be the same upper bound for each row. Whenever I traverse through the array, I want to grab the entire line in row of nums. From the row of nums, I'm going to grab the entire line and put it in line. So the line that is coming in is separated by commas. Then on the next line, I'm going to take this line, I'm going to split it. Wherever there is a comma, I want to split it. And that C is for character. So every time there is a comma, split it. So anything to the left of the comma will go in one element of the array. Anything to the right of the comma should go in the next element of the array. After that, now it is time to store the data into the actual array. For that, we are using this nested loop. So here in the first for loop, I said go from 0 till the number of rows I have. In the inner loop, I'm saying go from 0 till the number of items in each row you have. Did you use the imports.system? So the code that we have written this far allows us to traverse through the entire array and populate it with data. Now we need to write a logic to display this data back to the user. So again, we simply copied this, pasted it right below, and we removed all the lines that were about reading, and we changed this line to display line. As a result, we were able to display the data one score per line. If you do not want to display the data one score per line, you can simply make some changes such as I want to display all the scores the way they are in the file so that all the scores on the same line will be in the same line. And before I go and display the next row of the array, I want to have a console.writeLine operation so that there's a line break on every row. So as a result, your output will now going to change to this. However, there is now one fix-up that needs to be done, and that fix-up is not to display a comma after the last one. And again, you can do that with the help of an if condition to make sure that if it is not the last element that you're reading, then display the comma. If it is the last element that you're reading, then don't display the comma. So what I want to do is I want to be able to display the 4 scores considering that these are the 4 scores of each student per line. And then I want to be able to produce a sum, an average, and I also want to display a letter grade for each score for that student. So in order to do all of these things, I may have to work with variables. I may have to declare sub-procedures. So we're going to be doing a lot of steps in this remaining example. So for now, to get started, I'm just declaring a couple of variables over here. Dim sum as double, comma, average as double. Sum is 0, average is also 0 to start. While we are in the inside loop, that's where I want to concatenate my sum with that of an array. So take an element, one value at a time from the array, add it to the sum, and store it back in sum. And right outside the inner loop, calculate the average, which is sum divided by, because there are how many scores per row? 4. Okay. And set the sum to 0 and average to 0. So it displays the 4 scores of a student. Add them up. It displays the 4 scores of a student. Add them up. Then after it is done adding in the inner loop, in the outer loop it calculates the average. It displays the average score followed by a line of hyphens followed by a VBCRLF, which is VB caret return line feed, which is equivalent to a write line. So we generate an empty line between each output. We reset the average and sum back to 0. So for the next student, we can start again from 0. Okay, so we will going to change this to a write line. And we will going to concatenate this with an increment of j plus 1 because the j is currently set to 0. And we're going to then concatenate it with a colon and a space. So as a result of this change, you should be able to see quiz 1, 2, 3, 4 for first student, quiz 1, 2, 3, 4 for second student, so and so forth. Since j starts from 0 and goes to the last element in every row, adding 1 to it, we're going to make it go from 1 through the last element in every row. This is just for the output purpose, we're adding 1 to the output. So we created a function called letter grade, which we're going to receive a score from the user. The user will going to pass a score from the main over here. Based on the value of score, it will going to figure out the value for letter, and we're going to return a letter back to the user. So that is why in the function definition, we are returning a string, and that's exactly what we are doing in the last line, that we are returning a letter back to the file. So since the value 84 we already know is not in this criteria, the only reason we have an and over here, so to force a value to not go exceed 100. So if 84 is not within this range, 84 automatically falls here. Yes, 84 is greater than or equals to 80, and since we already know it's not a value between 90, 100, and 100, this is an unnecessary check in all cases, because we have already checked in the previous case. That is why we have come this far to the next case. So we will now going to scroll up to where we are displaying the result of every quiz. And alongside, we would now like to add some more to this output. We have a function, a built-in function letter grade. This built-in function letter grade does asks for a parameter. So we're going to be passing the same score that we are displaying as a parameter to letter grade. Letter grade should receive this as a parameter in its local parameter score. And then the value of score will decide which letter grade to return. And here you can see that each has a letter grade written to its right. And the letter grade is in square brackets because we have asked it to be in a square bracket. So we will going to right click and we're going to add a new item. This will be a text file called studentnames.txt. We're going to put 5 names because we have 5 rows in the scores.txt. Now we are back in our module where we need to tie the connection with this one. So let's scroll up to where we have declared our file name object. We'll copy that line and paste it right below. Instead of file name, the second one we're going to call file name 2. And now we will going to grab the full path of studentname.txt and we're going to paste it in the file name 2. Got it? Okay. Next, dim row of names as string equals to file dot read all lines file name 2. It's the exact same code as the line above. Instead of reading all the numbers, we're reading all the names. When we read all the numbers were in 2 dimensions because every row had multiple numbers. But here every row has a single name. It's a single dimensional array. So all of the names, one per row or one per element, is stored inside row of names. Now we scroll down to where we are displaying everything. That's where, before we get into the inner loop to start displaying the details of the quizzes for a student, this is where we want to display the values one at a time from row of names. So right here, console.writeLine student name, and you can see in the output that every student's name is displayed, followed by the quizzes of that student. For every quiz, it displays the letter grade, and the average score of the student is displayed. And with the average score of the student, I'm also interested in displaying the letter grade of the average score. So I'll do the exact same thing. I'm going to call the letter grade. And this time to the letter grade, I will going to pass the average. So that way, for every student, you can see their letter grade for their average. So the changes that we have made are the changes to the outer loop where we are displaying the student name, and for every student we display the letter grade alongside the average score.